Hello, I'm Avery, and we are here in the Sinkyone territory in the Lost Coast Native Plant Garden. I'm here with, what's your name?
My name is Cheryl.
And yours?
Ginny.
Nice to meet you, Cheryl and Ginny. I believe we're here to talk about native plants. What is a native plant?
Well, what makes any species a native is if it's grown here locally for over 500 years, over the amount of time that the white man has lived here. So it was here before Europeans came.
What are some of the characteristics of a native plant?
Native plants, they grow here locally. And because native plants grow here locally, they also lend a sense of place. Our place looks like it does because those plants grow here rather than tropical plants or desert plants. Native plants are used by wildlife. They provide pollen and nectar and food for insects, animals, including humans.
They're part of the local food web.
They're part of the local food web, yeah. Right, and they're not invasive. They don't spread so fast that they take over habitat for other plants or other creatures. Mm-hmm. And they're fun to garden with. Their added benefit of native plants is that they don't need a lot of maintenance or a lot of water.
So, what are some examples of native plants that live around here?
Lots of them. California poppies.
Redwood trees.
Yeah, the whitethorn, our valley's named after the whitethorn that's a native.
Yarrow.
So how about we pick a native plant that's right in front of us? What about the Pacific willow?
That's great. Here's a Pacific willow growing right here.
So where around here does it grow? Other than right here, of course.
Pacific willows, they like water. They like their feet wet, so they grow around streams and seeps and springs and wet meadows, and they grow in the Pacific Northwest.
Interesting. So how do they spread?
Well, they spread by seeds. They have catkins in the spring, like pussy willows, and then eventually those make seeds and the seeds drop or are spread by birds. And they also root easily from their stems, so broken stems that land someplace moist they can root in.
How are they used by wildlife other than that?
Well, beavers love to eat the inner layer of the bark, and song sparrows and other nesting birds like to nest in the branches. Birds eat the seeds for food, and this is a really great habitat plant for birds because insects like this plant, and so birds can eat the insects.
It has particularly large roots, and it holds back the soil and prevents erosion, which is really important for streams and rivers. Yeah. And another interesting thing to add to just even though it's beneficial for wildlife, of course, but also for humans, salicylic acid is from the willow, and that's what aspirin is made of.
Hello, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Rainbow.
Nice to meet you, Rainbow. What are some of the basic characteristics of introduced plants?
Well, they're introduced because they're from other places around the world. Some of the characteristics, they're often used by humans, usually found in human gardens or orchards, planted by humans, and often found in multiple countries.
What are some familiar examples of introduced plants?
Well, for example, tulips are from Holland, and daffodils are from Spain. Lemon trees are from South Asia. Apricot trees are from Persia.
And we find those all over here.
In people's gardens.
Mostly in people's gardens.
Yeah.
Let's find out more about daffodils. So, where do they grow?
Daffodils that grow in any sunny place where they have well-drained soil. And they're found throughout the United States and throughout the world, actually, in people's gardens. And they're usually one of the first bulbs to bloom in springtime.
How do they spread?
The daffodil bulbs multiply, so gardeners can break apart the bulbs and start new plants.
What about daffodils and wildlife?
Well, daffodils are poisonous to animals, and they are not visited by pollinators.
Well, that's disappointing.
Well, they bring smiles to our face in the spring.
Good point.
Sometimes people plant daffodils along the sunny banks, the stream banks, or in a meadow in order to beautify the area. But daffodils don't do anything to help keep the stream cool, to clean the stream, or to keep it clear. So, they're pretty, and that's about it.
Yeah. So is there anything else you might find intriguing about them other than that?
There are over 13,000 different varieties of daffodils.
Oh my. So that's a whole lot of pretty, I guess.
With no nectar.
Disappointing. So are introduced plants ever a problem?
They can definitely be if they start taking over everything. Then we call them invasive plants. And they take over the native habitat and cause a problem.
So what are some key characteristics of invasive plants?
Well, they're very tough, very hard to kill, and they grow just about anywhere. They're not just specifically to one small area. You find them all over the world sometimes, in many continents. And they like disturbed areas where humans have disturbed it, like areas along roadsides and that kind of thing.
They also spread very fast, and they're very hard to kill. They don't have any natural predators to keep them under control.
One example of a invasive versus native plant is this here, right?
Absolutely. This is going to be your Himalayan Blackberry. Very invasive.
And a great example of how this right here is so much different from a native plant is that this smaller plant down here with much thinner stems, more delicate, is actually a native blackberry, as opposed to this very thick, very aggressive, pokey Himalayan blackberry.
Yes, you can see how sturdy it is, and if left to be, this is going to just take over the whole area and then smother those native blackberries out.
Yeah, along with any other plants that are around here that are native as well.
Himalayan blackberries grow especially well in sunny areas, and it can thrive in any state or country with a mild climate. It grows from very large root balls that spread very quickly underground. It produces a tasty berry with many seeds that animals eat and then distribute. Blackberries can also clone themselves when a branch touches the soil. That branch will reroot and then make its own very new blackberry.
I think that's kind of what we're seeing right here. There's this big branch right here, and this is rooting off of it, and this right here is rooting off of it, so it'll probably just keep rooting off and cloning itself.
If we give it that opportunity, absolutely.
Probably one of these days we'll have to pull it out ourselves so it doesn't destroy all these native plants.
Absolutely.
What else is it used for by wildlife?
Well, a blackberry bramble has very little habitat value for animals. Birds and mammals like the raccoon and coyotes feast on the berries. This is true. But the berries only ripen in July and August. The rest of the year, the animals have to travel away from the wide-spreading berry bush to find their food.
So really, well, it seems like they'd be benefiting from these berries. It's not, because it's taking away their other food sources and limiting the amount of resources that they have. How does the Himalayan blackberry affect the habitat of these streams?
So blackberries form very dense thickets. This crowds out the native plants, as you were describing, which are needed to provide the shade and prevent erosion. So The blackberry actually is detrimental to the stream because it's taking away the needed plants that help benefit the stream.
Anything else that sort of kind of may be interesting about these blackberries?
Oh, they love to grow in places that have been disturbed or changed by humans. Also, humans are often seen along roadsides gathering the berry in hot summer months.
Hope you enjoyed learning about native plants.
Stay curious and have fun!